So a question I want to ask you today, and I want you to consider and take home with you is just this. Who taught you that you could not rest? Who taught you that you could not rest? What did you see that made you believe that you were not worthy of rest, even when your body testifies otherwise? What systems in our world prevent you from resting? How is your own beautiful life that God longs to draw into rest actually structured away from rest by circumstances you can control, but also by circumstances that you can't control? Because that's also a part of this equation, right? So, if as people of faith, we're going to talk about the work of salvation and liberation and deliverance, we have to be talking about rest. All right, so that was a lot of framing. I want to do kind of a teaching on Sabbath today. We're going to look at a couple of different scriptures that come out of the Hebrew Bible, starting with Exodus 20, 1 through 17, which many of us know as the Ten Commandments. I know it's a beautiful snowy day, and the Ten Commandments seems like a hard place to start, but we're going to go there. We're going to go there quickly. You should be able to see this on the screen. I'm not going to read all the Ten Commandments, but I did want to put it up for you to get a sense of one of the important things about how Sabbath draws together all of these commandments. So this is essentially what God gives to the people after they've been delivered from the land of bondage. So at the very beginning, it says, then God gave the people all these instructions. I am the Lord your God, who rescued you from the land of Egypt, the house of your slavery. And then you get all the commands about like not having other gods before God, not making images, idols, not bowing down to them. And then you get the verse 7, not misusing the Lord's name. And then in verse 8, you get the Sabbath command. Remember to observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. You have 6 days each week for your ordinary work, but the Sabbath day is a Sabbath day of rest dedicated to the Lord your God. On that day, no one in your household may do any work. This includes you, your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, your livestock, and any foreigners living among you. For in 6 days, the Lord made the heavens, the earth, and the sea, and everything in them, but in the seventh day, he rested. That is why the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and set it apart as holy. And then after that command, you get all these commands that are about the neighbor. So not murdering, not stealing. So you've got this first set that's all about like, how do we orient ourselves toward God? And then the second that's all about how do we orient ourselves toward our neighbor? And they're drawn together by the Sabbath command. And they're also drawn together by that verse 2, right? This identification and disclosure of God as fundamentally the God who brings out, who draws out, who delivers. The idea here is that God is fundamentally different from the gods that these people experienced in Egypt. Fundamentally different from the gods that do not allow rest, that put you inside a system of anxiety and coercion and endless production. That this God is completely different from that. The invitation in these commandments is to this revolution of social possibility that is shaped and reshaping human interaction toward healing in liberating ways over and over again. All right, so a couple of things about this one verse. So one, it's a bridge verse, right? It's a bridge verse between these two poles of how to follow God. It's also positively framed, which is fascinating. So it's actually about something to do, which is nice, versus something, it's not about not doing something. I also find it fascinating that it is the longest command. And when I was reading about this, apparently it's probably the longest command because just like now, people needed it emphasized because they didn't do it, right? They were like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to practice this. So we got to put a little extra around it. And I think that's important. Definitely this command legitimizes work as good, You've got 6 days for work. And then it also says, let's set aside a period of time to rest. And then it gives the motive for that setting aside as this idea that God rests, that we follow the resting God. All right, so let's look at where that comes from. So that's Genesis 2, 2 through 3. On the 6th day, God completed all the work that he had done. On the 7th day, God rested from all the work that he had done. God blessed the 7th day and made it holy because on it God rested from all the work of creation. And when you stop to pull back from this is pretty extraordinary. Like often, and I do this all the time, I talk about God as creator, but I'm not great at talking about God as like the chief rester, like the chief one who like relaxes, the one who kicks their feet up. Like that's not what I'm great at doing. But that also means that I then model myself after only the part of God, the aspects of God that are about creation, and not the aspects of God that are about resting. I also want to just note here that, there's this sense that, when we take Sabbath, we are acknowledging that God is in control, that even if God could step back and rest, that we can also step back and rest. That God acknowledges that God is in control, and we can name that too. That we are dependents, that we are creatures who receive grace and received gift. That basically everything is grace and gift, and that even though that's super, super uncomfortable, it's also the truth of our existence. So setting aside a period of time helps us to live into that.